Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. Drama all over the place. Southampton thinking they're in the FA Cup final for 3 minutes. Rochdale in the Football League for 8 minutes. Spurs out of the relegation zone for 5 minutes. Late winners in the Fitba. Lots to get through. We'll start with the FA Cup. Finn Azaz, what a hit with the best goal of the game until Nico Gonzalez won it for City. Meanwhile, Chelsea players turned up and edged past Leeds. In the Premier League, Arsenal just did enough. Eze's beautiful goal beating Newcastle. At the bottom, Spurs win their first game since the invention of the iPhone, but then Calum Wilson knocks the stuffing out of them, while Forest absolutely wallop Sunderland and should be just about okay. In Scotland, a wild Edinburgh derby sees Hearts beat nine-man Hibs while Rangers mess up at home to Motherwell. And perhaps the biggest moment of the weekend, Rochdale secure promotion in the 95th minute, pitch invasion, the lot, only for York City to really secure promotion in the 103rd. All that plus your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hi, Max.
Hello, Sam Dalling.
Hello, Max Rushden.
And good morning, Dan Bardell.
Hello, Max.
Let's start with the FA Cup semi-finals then. The better of the two games was on the Saturday. Man City 2, Southampton 1, and a brilliant last 20 minutes or so. Sam, you were at the game, also mowing the lawn at Wembley, but we'll get to that. But from your vantage point, which was pitch side, I guess, I mean, you got to see the Azaz goal close up. And you know what? That cheer was not just, I said this to Baz on the radio, it wasn't just that's an amazing goal. That was, we're going to the cup final cheer, wasn't it? It was amazing.
The Southampton fans were wonderfully loud all afternoon, pre-game and throughout. So I was sat on 4 stalls behind the goal, right behind James Trafford. And by pure coincidence, I happened to be in the corner of the goal where that ball was curled into. I mean, it was one of those, from that angle, as soon as it leaves the foot, you just know it's going in despite Trafford's best effort. And, you know, I was thinking about this. Often, I've been in crowds myself as a supporter where I've completely lost it and seen that emotion. And often you get to see it on TV. But to be able to turn around and see the just pure joy on those Southampton fans. There was the wall of noise and just the looks on people's faces. You end up focusing in on a couple of people, and there was this family right in the front row, dad and daughter, and mum and son. And mum and son were going nuts. Dad was just stood there in like a complete, you know, that look of shock, disbelief, tears, and the daughter's trying to get him going, and he just can't. Like, he is just completely stunned. And there was just so much joy, and I think, yes, it was short-lived, but they got that couple of minutes, and they did believe. At that point, I think what we are, late 70s in terms of minutes, so you think, right, this actually could be our day, and then to turn around a couple of minutes later and see the despair, it was not fun, but again, it's that human emotion that football can bring out of you. And they did have a chance as well. At 1-1, they had another chance that Trafford tipped over the bar, and the noise as they came forward was brilliant there. But yeah, I just really felt for them, because having got that late and scored, and the nature of that goal, how good it was, you think that's going to be a winner that's going to send us to a cup final.
I mean, I guess if you want to see that emotion, you could either become a player for Southampton or just become a steward, and then you get to face the crowd for the whole time, Sam, and you'd be absolutely fine. I mean, and then Barry, like Nico Gonzalez, sort of one of those generic Man City players who kind of gets forgotten about, scores perhaps a better goal. I don't know. I mean, it's such a pure strike.
Well, look, they're both very, very good goals, but Azaz's was a curler on the turn, and Nico Gonzalez was just an absolute thunderbolt into the top corner from distance. There was no curl there. Brilliant strike, a strike worthy win in any semi-final, I suppose. I can't help feel a little bit sorry for Southampton, a championship team who makes the semi-final, and they're up against second-ish string Manchester City side, whose second string players would walk into most Premier League teams, most top flight teams across Europe. So it is very much a David and Goliath thing, and Goliath won, as he often does. This is now City's 4th FA Cup final in a row, and while Pep is to be commended for taking the competition seriously when so many head coaches don't, Manchester City have just such an advantage over everyone else. It really seems a little unfair.
I suppose it is a bit annoying, Dan, isn't it, for the neutral that it isn't, because it would have meant so much more to Southampton and Leeds, right? And it doesn't mean anything to City or Chelsea fans, but like if you're used to something and winning trophies, and they're two sides that do win trophies, then it's just not the same, right? You can understand why City fans, think, actually, can we afford to go down to London and get another semi-final in? We'll probably get to the final. Whereas for Southampton fans, it's like, I've got to get a ticket for love nor money.
Yeah, I think the price of football does factor into it at the moment. Manchester City have had a lot of success, so they've had a lot of those big games where you go to Wembley or you go somewhere else and you have to pay a lot of money. So there's no doubting that it would have meant more to Southampton fans because, as you say, they would have done everything possible to make sure that they got there. Same with Leeds fans if they've managed to advance as well. It is a bit boring. Look, if Southampton had knocked out Manchester City and knocked out Arsenal in the previous round as well, you've got to think that going up against anyone in the final, they would have had a little bit of belief, and it would have been a fantastic story for a championship side to get to Wembley and have a genuine chance of lifting the trophy. Because, as I say, they'd have dispatched the two best teams in the Premier League, and they're so close to doing it as well. I was watching the Arsenal game for my sins instead of the Manchester City game, and obviously keeping up with what was going on at the semi-final. And I saw that Southampton had scored, and I was like Sam and the Southampton fans. I was like, yes, this is it. Oh my God! I said to my wife, Southampton are beating Manchester City. They're going to get to Wembley. The next time I look at my phone, it's 2-1. It was energy sapping and soul destroying. But I think Southampton can take a lot of heart actually from what's happened in the last few weeks into what's going to be a playoff campaign. I think they've got a massive chance of going up and playing those two huge games that they've played. I think that will bode well for them.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, they play Ipswich in midweek, and if they win that, there is, and we'll get to it, an absolute bun fight for the final automatic promotion place in the Premier League. Why, Sam, were you on a ride on mower? What were you doing as part of the ground staff?
I think I've told you before, Max, that as much as I like being a football writer, I don't really like football. So anything that can get me away from writing about football and doing behind the scenes style stuff. So I had this idea of, well, can I spend the day on the ground staff somewhere? And I thought, well, why not start at the top? So I emailed Wembley, and actually they welcomed me in. So I spent the full day and then part of the day on Thursday sort of doing a behind-the-scenes piece for The Guardian, looking at what they do. And they do an awful lot, and stuff that you wouldn't necessarily expect. I walked in on Thursday and was greeted by a couple of falcons that they have going around weekly because Wembley's increasingly residential, so they need to ward off the pigeons. And actually, rather than just having me in there sort of standing around looking awkward, they first sort of, do you want to have a go mowing the pitch? And I thought they were joking.
Yes.
And initially I was like, no way I could do that. And then I thought, I can't look at myself and say that I was given the opportunity to mow the Wembley pitch, and I turned it down. So I have never been more nervous.
Is that why there was a big cock and balls cut into the
Come on.
But they let me get properly involved. So thanks to Kyle and to Cam, who is his deputy, and I'm sure he had much better things to do with his time on a work day than show me how to use a lawnmower. But they let me paint the penalty spot, so I was desperate for penalties. That would have been my penalty spot. I pinned up the sign that tells players where their designated warm-up areas are. So they obviously all walk past it, and I think Manchester City are notorious. It's a semi-final day. It's a bit more relaxed because there's no national anthems, there's no military on the pitch, so actually a little bit more relaxed. But getting the players off for the warm-up is sometimes a little bit difficult, and the Manchester City, one of Pep's deputies, likes to have a joke, and he says, yeah, for the final you won't get us off on time. But I did a bit of divoting, was out there afterwards. I was there till about 10 o'clock at night. I properly got involved, divoting up and down the pitch. I didn't want to be the journalist that turns up and then, right, game's gone, got to disappear. But it was a great day, and they do wonderful things, and they bring in students, and they work with the King's Trust. They give people opportunities, and ground staff from all around the country come in on match day to provide support to the 7 or 8 core team. So there were a couple of students who were just on the pitch. They'd signed up, they'd got this placement at Wembley, but they didn't know what they were going to do. So if you just said to them like 10 days before that they would be out on the pitch at Wembley at half-time divoting. Like, you could just see the smiles on their faces and how much it meant. And the final thing I should say is, wow, putting in the goalposts, it was like this synchronized acrobatic masterpiece. I watched Lydia and Bren do it, and it was like lift, counting in, flipping them over, like no room for error there. But they get a lot of compliments for their pitch at Wembley, and it was beautiful to walk on.
You're like Ramesh Ranganathan and Rob Beckett, but probably a more budget version for The Guardian. They've got that show where they go around and they try different things. Every time I do a show with you, you've done something quite niche to do with football.
If anyone can get me in to do some pre-season fitness testing, or I want to do a ground tour as well. I want to learn how to do a stadium tour and then take a group round and see what I'm like. But yeah, always open to ideas.
Well, look, the pitch looked good the next day when Chelsea beat Leeds, so well done to you, Sam. Not a classic. It's a vintage Chelsea thing to have a season like this and then end up winning something, isn't it?
No matter how basket casey they get, they always seem to, and no matter how many first-team coaches they burn through, they always seem to come up with silverware. This wasn't a particularly good game, and I think Leeds will be a bit disappointed that they didn't give a better account of themselves, because we all know they can play better than they did here. Having said that, Robert Sanchez was the busier of the two goalkeepers. Lucas Perry didn't have a huge amount to do. There was very little he could do about that Enzo Fernández goal. I think it was Pascal Strike gave the ball away midfield. Chelsea went forward with Pedro Neto on the ball. His cross, James Justin possibly might have intercepted it, but he mistimed his jump, and Fernandez was there to nod home. Fernandez was the standout player in the pitch. I think that speaks volumes about his character, and not much of it complimentary, because he wasn't really trying very hard against Brighton. He had a stinker when Chelsea got beaten by Everton. He just didn't seem to fancy playing for Lemur Senior. Daniel Farke said after the game that he thought his players were maybe a little bit nervous and overawed by the occasion, and that struck me as possibly being true. But they did have good chances. Brendan Aronson could and probably should have put them ahead, and Anton Stack shot. Sanchez saved that brilliantly. So I think if Leeds had got a goal, especially if they'd got that early one through Aronson, it could have been a whole different ball game. But as it was, they didn't really show up.
Yeah, and actually that Sanchez save from Aronson is also brilliant, isn't it? Because even though it's not in the corner and perhaps he should score, he's not got any time to get his foot down to that. And Mark Bosnich, when I worked with him, he'd always say, talk a lot about if the ball is quite close to you, obviously you can get your foot there quicker than your hand. And some of the best keepers like David De Gea is sort of really well known for like getting his feet to those kind of chances. So well done to Robert Sanchez. And there is a story there, Dan, about player power and Chelsea. And I suppose I'd take what Barry says, but I guess part of being a manager is getting players to play for you. And if they won't, then you're not the right person to be the manager. Whether that's a criticism of the players as well, that is just the truth of it.
Look, it's not just Chelsea. It's happened at many big clubs previously. It's actually happened at Chelsea a few times. There was that famous banner about Fabregas and Hazard that was unfurled at Stamford Bridge. I forget which manager it was, but it is a trending theme. When a manager leaves, suddenly the next game players turn up. I saw a clip of Wayne Rooney this morning talking about it happening at clubs he was at. So it's a trend in football. Chelsea turned up, but they weren't absolutely fantastic, were they? It wasn't like they came out and bust a gut to win that game. I think they just did the basics better than maybe they did with Liam Rossini. They actually tried to defend, which was an improvement on the Brighton game the week before. Fernandez was the best player on the pitch, but it wasn't a high bar. But I thought his role was quite interesting. He was covering off to the left quite a lot when Garnacho was pushing up, because let's face it, Garnacho isn't going to work very hard the other way. And I think what we saw from the game towards the end of Rossini's tenure, there's a massive drop-off when João Pedro doesn't play and Liam Delap's up front for Chelsea, and they just look a better side when João Pedro's there. And if you look at the goal, he's very good at dropping deep, but he kind of just halts his run, which creates the space then for Enzo Fernández to ghost him, which he's very good at, and get the goal. I wanted Leeds to get through. I think Leeds have been a really, really good watch this season. I think Daniel Farke has recovered like a pretty untenable position at one point really, really well. And now they're going to stay up comfortably. And I think he's probably in the top 3 or 4 managers of the season for me. So I wanted Leeds to win, but I think they'll look back and think they probably didn't really do themselves justice on the big occasion, which can happen because those Chelsea players are more used to the big occasion.
Yeah, it's worth saying well done to Calum McFarlane, who said it was the greatest moment of his career. And he comes from, a family of Chelsea fans and is thrust into this role that he's had before and wins an FA Cup semi-final. So good for him. Should we do the Premier League then? Arsenal beating Newcastle 1-0. So they have 73 from 34 games. Man City 70 from 33. Arsenal play next as well before City play, so they could be 6 points clear. It was one of those Arsenal score 1 goal from a set piece, then keep a clean sheet games, remember, from the start of the season. They are back, although, Sam, it was a different kind of set piece.
From a Newcastle perspective, you look at it and go, where's the defenders? Because you give Eberechi Eze, I think they said on Match Today that he scored the most goals from outside the box since 2022. So to give him that kind of space, but it was smart because it looked like Newcastle was set up for that usual pack. Well, they definitely were set up for that pack the penalty box, get in and around the goalkeeper set piece, and they just they've done it. There'd maybe been a warning sign just beforehand, but it came so early. It was a brilliant finish, another set piece goal, as you say, and I just felt a little bit for the Arsenal fans that must have been agony to sit there and hang on to that. With the Newcastle had a couple of chances as well, so the nerves, and we've said it before, and the tension, they are not making it easy. They are not a comfortable watch at the moment at Arsenal.
Yeah, I suppose what was funny, Baz, I don't know if you noticed this, and I had to watch it again this morning because I thought it happened, then I wasn't sure. It's like the second time they did that short corner. So Eze's already had a go, which shows that Newcastle should be wise to it. But the second time they did a short corner, quite a lot of Arsenal fans groaned, or sort of not quite booed, but were like, we're not up for this. And then Eze scores this absolutely brilliant goal.
Yeah, well, I think Arsenal had decided, Newcastle are physically big team and Arsenal decided to try something different because they thought Newcastle might have their measure with high balls coming in. So, as you both pointed out, Newcastle were given a warning as they shot wide, and then they didn't heed the warning, and he put his next one in the top corner. It was not a particularly good Arsenal performance. And Newcastle had chances, and the pick of them fell to Yoane Wissa. An in-form firing Yoane Wissa scores that one, and it finishes 1-1. And Arsenal, that would have been a disastrous result for Arsenal. But he didn't, and they've got to 3 points. I think they can go 6 points clearer before City play again. So it was a good result, but yeah, Arsenal really putting their fans through the ringer. I think their running is conspicuously easier on paper, at least, than Manchester City.
The Voltemada pass to Wissa was so good. It's sort of what he can do, and I don't know how simple the Wissa is. I like the Asula miss kick as well. Just touches his standing leg and then he just falls over. Here's a question, Sam. Carrie says, if all the teams fighting relegation start picking up points, should Newcastle start worrying? They've lost 4 in a row. They've got Brighton, Forest, West Ham and Fulham. I mean, they could lose all. I mean, I'm saying this with obviously amazing amounts of hope and the idea that Tottenham will win all their games. But is there like 1% of you that's nervous?
About relegation, no. Just about got enough. I mean, in looking back now, there was that injury time winner in the 4-3 at home against Leeds and the one Will Asula scored against Manchester United. And I know you could do this all day long, right? But if you take those two out of it, you're in real trouble. I think that I'm not going to talk at length about Newcastle's problems and all of that because I could be here all day, but what is telling is that it is realistic that a side like Nottingham Forest, for example, they've changed managers a couple of times, they've been talking about fighting relegation the whole season, they could well finish above Newcastle. I think Newcastle could slip further behind. Newcastle still have to go to Nottingham Forest. It just looks like as we saw in November, they're just real issues with Newcastle. They haven't worked out how they were better at Arsenal, but the bar was so low. They spent all this money. The front three on Saturday for Newcastle was Willock, Asula, and Jacob Murphy, and that's the kind of thing you'd expect in the FA Cup third round, but not when you spent a couple of £100 million on forward players and they get up. They were better because they get up for the good teams. He dropped Lewis Hall, brought down Burning. I am going into Newcastle. The short answer is no, not about relegation, but they could easily finish below sides like Leeds and Nottingham Forest, who have been fighting relegation all season. And I think that is telling about the direction Newcastle are in and how it's very difficult to see a way out without big change.
Do you feel, Sam, that at the moment Eddie Howe is almost distancing himself from the summer business with that lineup to leave Voltemada, Visser and Elanga on the bench, who all cost a lot of money in the summer? Do you almost feel he's trying to distance himself from that summer business and say, well, this season it's not on me?
Big old mess last summer, and he ended up basically being in charge of recruitment, having come out and said that we need to act fast. They then lost Paul Mitchell. He really pushed for Elanga. Elanga is very much an Eddie Howe signing. They were there for a couple of years. Doesn't seem to know how to use Voltemada. It's just playing him in midfield. He's become the scapegoat, particularly in the press. Oh, it's like whatever happens, it's Nick Voltemada's fault, and they can't keep a clean sheet. They're going to lose players. Trippier's going to go. Show's going to go. They're going to lose a couple of big players over the summer. So yeah. They're probably going to have 8 or 9 changes in that squad. But looking back at last summer, it's difficult for him to distance it. It just feels like they'd written the season off in the Premier League and it's just treading water. And they'd done that from about 10 or 12 games to go. So yeah, I don't know where it goes next. I think they've got a summit at Matfin Hall, the really nice Hogwartsy hotel that Barcelona stayed in, where PIF actually fly over, and they do it every year, and it's all presentations and things. But I think a big thing will be made of that. They could do with making a decision, coming out and saying, right, Eddie Howe is either going to go in the summer or we're going to back him and keep him, because I think there's just this limbo at the moment that is not healthy for anyone.
All right, that'll do for part 1. Part 2, we'll do the relegation dogfight. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So the bottom of the table looks like this. Wolves and Burnley are down. Tottenham are 18th on 34. West Ham have 36. And then if you include them, Forest 39, Leeds 40, and Newcastle 42. Come on, the more teams, the more the merrier, everyone. And a real roller coaster, Dan, especially for, West Ham fans. 80 minutes into these games at 3 o'clock, they're winning, Spurs are drawing, then Spurs score, then Everton score. Spurs are out of the relegation zone before Calum Wilson scores in injury time. How big do you think that Calum Wilson goal is?
Yeah, it feels like one of those pivotal weekends, doesn't it? Why did Match of the Day not do that thing where they play the 2 games at the same time and cut between? And can that only be done on the last day of the season? Like, is it reserved for that? Because I was fully expecting that.
It's what we're doing right now, isn't it?
Yeah,
we're doing it.
Unbelievable from you, Max.
Thanks.
And when Tottenham scored and Everton equalised, you thought, you're not going to like this, but as someone who is like a neutral in the relegation, well, I'm not really a neutral in the relegation battle, I would like Tottenham to get relegated. I think it would be fascinating for a so-called Big Six team to be operating in the Championship. So that's what I want to happen. That 2-3 minute spell when Tottenham scored and Everton equalised, I was crestfallen. And the Tottenham fans must have been thinking at that point, oh my God, things have turned. This is it. This is the moment that we've been waiting for. But then Calum Wilson to pop up and score that goal, that's got to be energy sapping for everyone involved at Tottenham, the players, the manager, the fans, because you've won. And look, it's the first time Tottenham have won in 2026, so it's a big moment. But if you'd have won and West Ham had dropped points and you're out of the relegation zone, the whole mood feels completely different. As it happens now, Spurs have won, but nothing's changed. They're still in that bottom 3. West Ham have won, Nottingham Forest have won. So you do feel like that really could have been a pivotal moment for Spurs, and I think it is, but not in the way that you'd hope.
Yeah, I mean, Wilson does really well, I think, Barry. It's not the hardest finish, but he does take it very calmly. Considering
he took
the
it
pressure.
very calmly, placed it very precisely into the gap. On another day, he might have smashed it over the bar, like into the stand. So I think he deserves a lot of credit for that finish, given the lateness of the hour and the circumstances in which he scored it, and how much is at stake.
Yeah, 8 goals in 9 games against Everton for Calum Wilson.
It's an amazing arc he's had within this year, because West Ham fans had turned against him. Free signing, the game they lost to Brentford. They got battered at home, and Wilson was left on the bench. He didn't start, and then they brought a young lad on whose squad number was in the 50s or 60s, ahead of Callum Wilson. And they went to Wolves and they lost. Wolves' first win. And it was all this talk about how Wilson, they're basically going to rip his contract up. He was going to leave on a free. I don't think he played the following week against Forest. But he came on, he scored the winner against Spurs, didn't he? I think he was on the pitch
minute.
for like 1 minute.
How that is an enormous goal now, yeah.
Exactly. So actually he's going to turn in at Christmas or January, they're writing him off thinking, oh, what a terrible signing. And actually he, having scored those 2 goals now, if they keep West Ham up, wow, what a free signing he's turned out to be.
Yeah, and Souček, Dan, like he scored a good header, but his header to stop Tieno Barry's header is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I don't know how much he knows about it, but you've got to react a bit. That's an extraordinary clearance.
Yeah, he's such a bizarre player, isn't he, Souček? Because you watch him and it looks like he can't move. Sometimes you watch a footballer and think, that might be how I look if I'm on the football pitch. It happens occasionally with Premier League goalkeepers, and I think Souček's another one. But my God, he's got a big moment in him. The amount of important goals he scored for that football club, and that's as good as a goal, isn't it? That clearance. So big moments, they might come up trumps for you. Forest the same. On Friday, they're used to having a talisman, and I think they've got 3 or 4 contenders that could be the ones to keep them up. And then Spurs, I know this isn't what you asked me. It felt like it might be Xavi Simons, and he goes off injured, and I don't think he can play again for the rest of the season. Like, everything is pointing towards that those other 2 clubs are going to be able to galvanise themselves and get themselves to stay up. And Tottenham might galvanise themselves to get kind of a few wins, but I think the other 2 might do the same, which if that happens, Tottenham are down.
I suppose it could drag more teams into it. I think Everton did deserve something from this game, Barry. I don't think I'm being myopic about this. They could have had a penalty, sort of odd moment. Yeah, and they had some really good chances as well.
Yeah, I think they should have had a penalty for that Enzo Fernández handball when he had his arms around Barry down by the byline. Maybe they deserve something. They didn't get anything. I think you're just delaying the inevitable Spurs chat. Max,
okay,
well,
let's have it. Let's have it, Barry. No, so I mean, I suppose that's the point. Is they hadn't won for 118 days in the Premier League. Their first win of 2026, and obviously, like, if you can't beat Wolves, fair enough. But Wolves' last 3 games were beating Villa, beating Liverpool, and drawing with Arsenal at home. So, like, it isn't like ridiculous to suggest it's not worthy getting this win. So I guess the question is just like, how much of it can this lead to some psychological change? Or they've got Solanke and Simmons injured and everyone else is winning, so it doesn't matter at all.
Look, the win was crucial, but it was far from convincing. I think Wolves probably deserve something from this game. Kinski had to make 2 good saves, one of them outstanding from João Gomez in one of the last kicks of the game. So good to see him back on track after the Atletico Madrid fiasco. The first half was totally uneventful, but for Dominic Solanke going off with a hamstring injury, which you would presume will rule him out for the remaining games. And then the second half, they lost Xavi Simons, and it's since emerged what most suspected he's done his ACL, so he's gone for the rest of the season and he'll miss the World Cup. That's sad for him. But so the only positive, and it is a massive positive for Spurs on the day, was the fact that they managed to crawl over the line against the Premier League's bottom side. I don't think Leeds are safe. Everyone's presuming that because they've got 40 points, they're safe. I'm not so sure about that. I think they might need a couple more, but...
Yeah,
anyway.
well, I mean, I think you say that, but if you look at the fixtures, and we'll do Forest win in a second, Leeds do have Burnley at home next,
right?
And that feels like a win. And then
they also have to play West Ham and Spurs.
They do, yeah, and Brighton. So Spurs have to go to Villa, and hopefully Villa will lie down in between the Europa League semi-finals against Forest. Home to Leeds, away to Chelsea at some point, and then home to Everton. West Ham go to Brentford, home to Arsenal, away to Newcastle, home to Leeds. And Forest go to Chelsea, home to Newcastle, away to Man United, home to Bournemouth. I suppose it's a case, Sam, that, lots of teams in the Premier League are good. Like, you could make a case for all those sides losing all those games, pretty much.
There aren't many meaningless games in the Premier League left as well. A lot of those sides they're going to, even the ones that you would, in inverted commas, go sort of mid-table, actually, they're still fighting to be in Europe. Everton last day of the season, Spurs have got Bournemouth. So there's a lot to play for. They haven't. It's probably Newcastle and Crystal Palace just about. I've not got the table in front of me, but other teams that you are just sort of already meandering towards the summer. I can't see Spurs getting out of it now. It just feels, I bring it back to Newcastle, but it feels like that Newcastle side of 2009, where all these star names, but just not a team. And as Dan has already said, the other sides are showing something and showing a bit of fight and a bit of togetherness. And Spurs have got players who know they won't be there next season regardless. And all right, they'll play and they'll celebrate. And yeah, but it's a long way out. And as Dan says, I'll have a smile on my face if it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, you say teams are showing togetherness. Nottingham Forest, Barry, on Friday night. I didn't see this game live. I woke up and saw the score. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is ridiculous. 5-0 win, 4-0 up after 40 minutes, including 3 in 6 minutes. As you were saying, teams are invested in Tottenham getting relegated. Would you include Sunderland in that? How dare they?
I'm not sure what Tottenham have done to upset Sunderland, but they really seem to have it in for them. They beat them and then total capitulation against Forest. They conceded pretty much the same goal twice, either side of Robin Roof's gifting Forest their second goal. So that's them 3-0 down in jig time. Igor Jesus makes it 4-0 by half-time. Sunderland fans start streaming for the exits of the Stadium of Light. And who can blame them, to be honest? Friday night, where would you rather be, in the pub or watching that dreck? But Regis Labrie said afterwards, when you drop your standards by 10%, your opponents can kill you. And I would say it was being extremely kind to suggest Sunderland had only dropped their standards by 10%. It was an absolutely abysmal performance. I'll be honest, I wouldn't have minded Sunderland losing that game. But to get absolutely thumped like that was not good. They were pitiful. You can only beat what's in front of you, and Nottingham Forest made extremely short work of what was in front of them.
Adam says Morgan Gibbs-White hitting form for goals and assists for Forest, and Cole Palmer struggling with fitness and form, with Morgan Rogers and Jude Bellingham being Thomas Tuchel's preferred players for 10. Should he be considering Gibbs-White for the squad, especially as he seems to be more adept at playing on the wings as well as the 10, providing greater tactical flexibility off the bench, whereas Palmer seems to be less creative from the wings? I don't know what you think, Dan.
I think it would come down to, and I think he's got a shout, when it's a 26-man squad, and as that man said, it's Rogers and Bellingham are the two main candidates for that position. Would Gibbs-White be a better traveller in being in the squad but not playing than Cole Palmer? I think that gets factored into selection. Sometimes I think that's why Trent's not getting selected, because I think Tuchel thinks if he's not going to play, I don't want him in that 26-man squad as a backup player that's not really going to get on the pitch, because he's too kind of bigger player. If he thinks that with Palmer versus Gibbs-White, I think Gibbs-White has got a chance. He's a fantastic player, Gibbs-White. I think he's something different as well in terms of the energy and the work rate that he brings. So I guess it comes down to how Tuchel's gonna measure that 26-man selection.
Cole Palmer has not had a good season at all. His standards, very high standards, have dropped also a lot more than 10%. And we know how good he can be, but he hasn't shown it for a long time.
Yeah, and fitness as well. Anyway, we can discuss the England squad ad nauseum when the season's done. Who will be the third choice left back? We'll be back in a second. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Liverpool beat Palace 3-1 in that Champions League race. 3 sides have 58 points. Man United, Liverpool and Villa. Man United have a game in hand. That's against Brentford tonight. Looking pretty comfortable. And I think if Villa win the Europa League, then 6th place gets into the Champions League as well, which could make it very interesting for...
If they finish 5th.
If they finish 5th.
I don't know why that is. It's only if they finish 5th, yeah.
Okay, so if they finish 5th, then it does make it interesting for your Bournemouths and your Brentfords, etc. Liverpool beat Palace 3-1. Dan, what did you make of this one?
Probably the kind of comfortable afternoon they could have done at Anfield through other points during the season. That's probably one of the things that's that's let them down. It's starting to feel a little bit like a farewell tour for Salah and Andy Robertson, isn't it? Who we all know are going to depart at the end of the season. And in fairness, when Andy Robertson went through on goal and finished, all that was missing was the number 11 on his back, really. What wasn't he? It was like Mo Salah driving towards goal and putting it in the bottom corner. Salah got subbed, didn't he, with a little injury. Hopefully, that for his sake and for Liverpool fans' sake as well, that isn't his goodbye, because I think he probably does. Well, he definitely deserves a proper send off. But I think Palace, in all fairness, they've got their eyes on other things right now, haven't they? They're not going to qualify through Europe, through the league. So I think it's all in on the Conference League and trying to get themselves into the Europa League, which is a competition they believe they should have been in this season, and the chance to win 2 trophies in 2 seasons as well for Oliver Glasner. So yeah, just a comfy afternoon's work for Liverpool.
Although Freddie Woodman had to make some saves, to be fair, Sam. I guess being third keeper that was like a journalistic exploit for you soon, I imagine. If you write to every Premier League club, someone will let you be third keeper. And that's a nice story, isn't it? Freddie Woodman coming in and playing well.
Yeah, I did go in and I was with Tom Heaton as Manchester United's third choice keeper. So I've done that one last year.
You've already done it? Oh, Forrest, my apologies.
Been and done. I
enjoyed that piece so much.
Freddie Woodman, great story, because it was an interesting move from him, because he was at Newcastle as a kid, and his dad is on the coaching staff. His dad just got promoted with Bromley. I think he's Gareth Southgate's godson, actually, or something like that. He went out and had a couple of brilliant loan spells in the Championship with Swansea. They finished in the playoffs, and he played a couple of games for Newcastle, I think, at the start of 21-22, and he didn't look ready, and he left and he went to Preston as number 1. 3 seasons there to actually play, and then he moved in the summer to Liverpool, and it was a bit of a surprise. And you think, he's never going to get a game, but I think you have to back yourself in that situation. You take the chance to have that move and just not hope you get a chance, not wishing ill upon anyone else. And yeah, he makes a really good save as well for the one just before Robertson ends up scoring. It's a break from a Freddie Woodman save, and so that was a key intervention from him, really. So I don't know how many more games he'll play when Alisson's due back. Inevitably, I think whenever Woodman made a save, they sort of cut to Alisson on the sideline to see the other goalkeeper's reaction. But lovely for him to get a chance. He's 28 now, so in theory coming into peak goalkeeping years. So who knows for him? But there was another controversial moment involving him a little bit later on, wasn't there, when he was made a save and was down injured. So I don't think we can really call him at fault for the Crystal Palace goal.
No, he's 29. He was 28 until he was 29, but he's now 29.
That's how it works.
Should Munoz have gone full Di Canio and just, passed it back to him and then, gave him some grapes and caressed his head?
No. I think Munoz did the right thing, score into the empty net, which probably a little more difficult than he made it look, but it's his job to put the ball in the net and let everyone fight about it and argue about the niceties of it afterwards. I don't think he did anything wrong at all. Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahima Konate and Curtis Jones were all standing near the goal line, but none of them thought to stand on the goal line, and they might have been able to head it clear. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. And I don't know why Arne Slot was apoplectic on the touchline, because I'm sure in the cold light of day he would have no problem if one of his players did the exact same thing in similar circumstances. It did look as if Woodman had hurt himself quite badly. So I wonder if he will be fit to play in Liverpool's next game, and if he isn't, who's the number 4 keeper?
It's Mike Hooper or Sam, or Peggy Arfak said. Fulham beat Villa 1-0. Dan, did you know what? The one moment from this game that gets lost in all the football that happened was the bit of skill that Tammy Abraham did to fashion the chance before he ballooned it over was unbelievable. Like how he turned his man there. He had no right to do that. And if he scores, well, people would be talking about this goal. But I want to talk about that bit of skill because I thought it was great.
10-minute Tammy, because I think every time he comes on, he only gets 10 minutes. Unfortunately, after he did that majestic piece of skill, as was Villa's way throughout the whole game, when they did present themselves with a chance, he's fired it over the roof of of Craven Cottage, so
Yeah,
it will get lost. But Tammy's a good player. Obviously scored the winner against Sunderland last week. Unfortunately for him, Watkins has hit a little bit of form, although he missed a chance at the weekend as well. So he hasn't had much football, but a nice reminder of what he can do. Some impeccable footwork, but just a game to forget. For Villa, really, credit to Fulham. I think their game plan worked and they kind of snuffed Villa out. Villa had to rely on moments of individualism to create a chance, and when they did, as I say, that the shooting was very, very wayward. A little bit of I think personally that Villa have got one eye on Thursday, but before the game, Emery spoke about wanting to finish third and wanting to finish as high as possible. Every time Villa have had the chance to do something like that this season, they've lost or not won the game. So that's a little bit frustrating. I think Villa probably need one more win to make absolutely sure. And we've got to play Burnley, which is, anyone who's playing Burnley, everyone says that's 3 points. I think to bring it back to Tottenham again, Max, I think you could have probably done with Villa beating Fulham, because there may be sandwiched in between those two Europa games. There would have been leeway for Villa not to turn up and lose. Now I think Emery will just want to get another 3 points on the board as soon as possible, and that probably needs to be Sunday.
How are you feeling about the Forest game? And how are you feeling about the do you feel there is a sort of enough of an excitement in English football about an all-English semi-final, because it's not, two fancy down London teams. These are two big, really historical sides. It's sort of, I don't know if it probably isn't lost to you, but it feels like people aren't really talking about this as a must-see event.
Maybe if Arsenal weren't still in the Champions League and there was no English representation in the Champions League, maybe it would be getting a bit more fanfare than what it's been getting. But two perfect teams really to have that kind of game. Two teams that have won the big trophy in the past. I think it's West Midlands v East Midlands, but it's a Midlands derby as well, and it's two sets of fans that haven't won a trophy for an awfully long time. Forest even longer than Villa. I don't even know when they would have last won a trophy. So it's a massive moment for both teams. I actually think look, Villa are way higher than Forest in the league. I actually think it's a little bit of a leveller, it being two English teams against each other as well. And Villa haven't won in the Premier League away from home since January the 25th. So Villa's away record against English teams isn't brilliant. So if Forest turn up and have a good go in that first leg with the fan base that I know will absolutely get behind them, I think they can take something to Villa Park to protect. And at that point, I think maybe it becomes difficult for Villa. So I think it's a really, really intriguing battle. And, I'd urge people to tune in because I think it'll be a massive occasion.
So the Fitba Corner then, it was a fascinating weekend. Hearts have 73 points from 34, Celtic 70 from 34, and Rangers 69 from 34. Hearts beat Hibs 2-1 yesterday. It was some game, Baz. It was sort of extraordinary. Well, you can talk us through it.
Just in the build-up to this game, Celtic had beaten Falkirk 3-1 on the Saturday. Then Rangers lost 3-2 at home to Motherwell, which I suspect their fans, that was a result they did not see coming. So Hearts go into this game against Hibs, at Hibs, their Edinburgh rivals, bitter Edinburgh rivals, knowing that a win is crucial. Hibs promptly go a goal up through Martin Boyle, then lose their goalkeeper, Raphael Salinger, to a red card. I was thinking, actually, if he was playing in a wheat field, would Salinger be the catcher in the rye? But anyway.
He did, unfortunately, he caught it out of the field because his hands, his feet were in the box, but his hands couldn't have been further out of the box when he caught it.
Hibs lost another man to a red card when Felix Paslik was sent off for a second yellow shortly after half-time. And then Hearts made very heavy weather of beating the 9 men. Lawrence Shanklin pulled the first one back, and then Blair Spittle, who is one of the most Scottish-sounding footballers of all time, he drove home a pullback to win it for them with 4 minutes of added time remaining. So it could be an absolutely critical derby win for Hearts. But
you could see the relief on the Hearts fan. It was just, and it took quite a big deflection, actually. Both goals were pretty jammy. And you were like, maybe it is their time. Because that Rangers result was, shocking, wasn't it? They were 2-0 down at home to Motherwell, got it back to 2-2, and then conceded the 90th minute. And you could hear the silence Ibrox. It was deafening.
Hearts have to play Celtic on the last day of the season after games against Motherwell and Falkirk. Celtic and Rangers still have to play each other, so it's all very, very much up for grabs still in Scotland.
To the National League then. Chris says, please do part 1 on Rochdale York. Oliver says, how do we go about hanging the last 14 minutes of Rochdale v York in the Louvre? Is that the best, most courageous linesperson decision ever? Should we just retire football as a sport? It's peaked. An absolutely ridiculous end to the National League. Ahead of the game, York were on 107 points. Rochdale were on 105. So York went to Rochdale knowing that a point would be enough. And it's 0-0 going to the 95th minute, at which point Rochdale score a beautiful goal. The cross is absolutely glorious. It's a great header. And there is a pitch invasion from the Rochdale fans. And an understandable one. The game's not finished, so probably don't do it. But you kind of understand why. But that means there's so much added time. In the 103rd minute, York score the scrappiest goal. It probably crosses the line, but you don't know. And then it's very hard to see, but they all run off. And it's just total pandemonium. I don't know, the local BBC commentary is unbelievable. The footage on Instagram has had millions and millions of views of both the Rochdale goal and the York goal. So Rochdale finished 106 and are not promoted. York are into the Football League. It is, Dan, it's just absolutely extraordinary.
I mean, I don't even know how to begin to describe it. It's probably best people just go and listen to that BBC commentary, because that will do it full justice. Anything I say won't be able to. But I feel like, not probably to this extreme, but you get to this point in the season, in the leagues that me personally, I don't watch much of at all, if any. I feel like this kind of game with the permutations, I feel like it happens quite a lot. I could be wrong here, but I feel like not to this extreme. There's definitely been stuff like this before.
Yes, I mean, it feels Jimmy Glassy. I don't know if anyone else thinks. I feel like for it to go down in history, you need the net to bulge. I know it doesn't need to, but just as a purist, I want to see the net bulging in that moment, because there's just a bit of, I think everyone thinks it did cross the line, but I mean, maybe that is Sam, I guess, splitting hairs, isn't it?
No, I'm with you. I think it's because it gives you that little hesitation. You don't just go bang straight into pure emotion. It's that little hesitation. But yeah, I mean, to go down to that last day and to be those two teams playing each other after 90 minutes of probably what was pretty nervous, hard to watch football, how Rochdale pick themselves up now and do it in the playoffs. I mean, that is a massive blow. It gives further weight to the argument of there being more than one up from the National League. It's happened a couple of times. I think Notts County finished behind Wrexham, didn't they, with 100 plus points, but they did go up in the playoffs. York themselves had a really good season last year, finished second, lost to Oldham in the playoff semi-finals. They sacked their manager at the start of the season, York. Poor Adam Hinchelwood, I think after 4 games, they were unbeaten, but they'd drawn 3 of them, so they got rid of him. He weirdly went and got promoted with Worthing, so he got promotions with 2 clubs this year. He'll be in the National League next year. But spare a thought for Yeovil fans, sliding doors moment, because the Ugler family a couple of years ago had agreed a takeover. Yeovil had this owner who wasn't very popular. They'd agreed everything, and the Ugler family were pumping cash into it to the extent that they were taking all the decisions, and they were asked in about March, do you own the club now? He said, it's not fair, we can't call us owners, but we are custodians. But that deal fell through in the end. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but they put some money in. They should have been owners of Yeovil Town, basically. Yeovil went down into the National League, and but for that deal going through, York would never have seen the Ugler family, and looks what's happened now.
Maybe the Ugler family just love the Jorvik Viking Centre, and that's it. That forced their decision.
There was some great pictures going around of assorted members of the York team out drinking, celebrating, still in full kit.
Yes. The difference between being able to go out in full kit and get absolutely larruped, or basically do a proper warm down because you've got to play the playoffs in a couple of weeks, is just so much, isn't it? Matt says, hi Max, Barry and the gang. I know I'm preaching to the converted, i.e. legacy football fans, but even after travelling from Vancouver to see Rochdale suffer the mother of all sucker punches from a goal that can't be proven to be over the line, it probably was, and even after a premature pitch invasion that may have cost us the league title, I still wouldn't swap it for a situation in which VAR was being used and it had somehow helped us win the game. Both sets of fans got to celebrate the goals based on the huge occasion it was, without having to wait 5 minutes for decisions that may not have been based on any conclusive evidence. I hope everyone enjoyed the National League drama. Matt, and now longer suffering Rochdale fan in Vancouver. Good for you going all that way, Matt, and good luck in the playoffs.
Does he have to stay down longer now because of the playoffs?
Well, because they finished second, I think it takes quite a long time. There's quite a lot of teams in the playoffs. And actually, just on that 3-up campaign, but I spoke to the chairman of Rochdale on the radio on Saturday, and York and Rochdale both put out a statement saying, whoever goes up, we are both going to support 3-up, because clearly, the teams at the top of the conference are as good as the teams in mid-table League Two, and they often go straight up or they challenge for the playoffs. But also it creates this sort of bottleneck at the top of the National League, which makes the National League a kind of ridiculous, sort of a bit Premier League-y in the difference between the top and the bottom, because there are just 4 or 5 teams. Like, I think the other teams who are 3rd and 4th and 5th, Carlisle and Scunthorpe and a couple of others, they've got like 85, 90 odd points, so it sort of creates a sort of slightly ridiculous division. I suppose the only argument against it is, it should be, you should have to really earn the right to get into the Football League. But, I can't see it happening, because if you're a League Two club, you're not going to vote for more opportunities to get relegated. You're just not going to do it. Anyway, John says, I know you're all about football, but should we note the achievement of Ethiopian Yomif Kej-Elcha, who broke the world record in the London Marathon with a time of 1 hour, 59 and 41 seconds, which is only the second time ever for a sub 2 hour in a true marathon race. But he came second by 11 seconds. Does that make him the Arsenal of marathon runners? Barry, your athletics correspondent.
I didn't think we'd ever see a 2-hour marathon. Well, I probably did in recent years, but years ago, the thought of it was ludicrous. It's up there with the 4-minute mile, isn't it? But I reckon our producer Joel can probably bang out 4-minute miles at the drop of a hat these days. So yeah, he didn't look too devastated. He was well beaten, but he's got his sub 2 hour marathon. He's the Buzz Aldrin of marathon running, isn't he?
That's true. But, 11 seconds over a marathon, it doesn't feel like well beaten to me. But, well done to them. Pete says, Dear Football Weekly, I'm a long-time listener and first-time emailer. On Sunday morning, I ran into Barry outside Stockwell Tube. It being marathon day, I asked jokingly whether he'd be running. He rightly gave it short shrift and asked why I was loitering outside Stockwell Station. I explained I was supporting my friend George in his first marathon since his last attempt in Amsterdam a few years ago, which, by all accounts, was a complete nightmare, where he fainted halfway through before being revived in a Red Cross tent by a kind old Dutch lady offering him Bovril. I explained that ever since then, he's harboured an ambition of running a sub 4 hour marathon. Barry wished him the best of luck while also questioning his sanity. I'm delighted to report that George snuck in at 3 hours and 56. Not the only miracle, as his wife Hattie gave birth shortly before race day. Oh, congratulations to you. I'd be delighted if Barry could offer congratulations to George. I'm sure it's all he's been thinking about since our chance encounter. All the best, Pete. So we'd like to say congratulations to George, Barry.
Yeah, it's a heroic effort. I knew, so well done, George. I knew 6 different people doing the marathon yesterday. All of them finished.
Is that because you're in a running club now after all your running?
No, I'm not in a running club. Although I might be pulling on my trainers today for the first time since the half marathon. I'm fully recovered.
Okay, so, what are you going to punch out? What are you going to punch out today?
I do just 3 miles to see what the lie of the land is.
Okay.
I won't be punching out anything more than 5 ever again, I think.
Got it. You don't fancy going sub 2 hour for a marathon? Imagine that. Barry Glendenning gets the world record. Anyway, that'll do for today. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Football Weekly is produced by Rory Simon. Our executive producer is Joel Grove, and we'll be back on Wednesday.